call it the Underdog Syndrome. Many in America are afflicted with the need to root for the underdog. For the last several years, Black folks have been America's perennial underdog. What I want to talk about is how well-meaning people who are not Black sympathize with the plight of some Black people, any Black person having an undesirable outcome, and think that they're doing them a favor by allowing them to use their Blackness as an excuse. Many of us embrace the whole idea of marginalized groups of people. We think in terms of the underserved. What that mindset has actually done for us is create a whole underclass of people for whom victimhood is a badge of honor. So now, instead of just Black people being victimized, we have LGBTQ people, we have transgender people, we have women. We have all these groups of people that we consider victims, and so they need our support. What the well-meaning white person does not get is that by sympathizing and vocalizing, they are reinforcing the thing that they claim is bad. Let me put it to you like this. Black people and other underserved, quote unquote, people think that white people are the end all be all. So when a white person says something, people in those underserved groups put a lot of credence in it. Those of you who are white and are merely stating your opinion and being kind while you do so, you don't realize this. I've had countless Black people send me videos or articles about things that white people say concerning Black people, and to them, this validates their feeling of victimization. I want to encourage you to stop it. Racism, a form of victimization, is on life support by people like you and other Black people who are looking for a reason to feel put upon. And let's talk about life support just for a bit. For a time, I was a critical care registered nurse, traveling nurse, and spent some time working in the ICU, and that's the intensive care unit. I am reminded of a patient named Corrine Vogelsang. She was a very lovely lady who unfortunately had a massive event and ended up in the ICU where I worked. We connected her to lots of machines, the sort of scene that you would see in movies, or if you've had loved one in the hospital, you've seen it in real life. There are tubes everywhere. There's a great big machine breathing for the patient and a host of other diagnostics apparatus. Each and every day, a slew of doctors and nurses and other hospital personnel would come in to see her. They would look at this machine and then look at that machine. They would measure this and they would measure that. She herself was not responding. She did not even open her eyes. She did not move any muscles. She did not respond to painful stimuli. In short, she was being kept alive by all the machinery and technology that we had to offer. Now, several times during her long stay, she actually died. Her heart stopped beating, her blood pressure plummeted, and she essentially was just a body. After some time in this shape, one of the physicians wrote in big bold letters on her chart, DNR, which meant do not resuscitate. If she was to stop breathing again, or if her heart was to stop beating again, we were not to resuscitate her. These were our instructions, even though we had resuscitated her many, many times before. And you know, we could have done that indefinitely. We could have still been doing it even today, years later. At the request of her family, one day we took all the machines, took all the tubes away from Corinne, and she died peacefully. We were all saddened, but we bid her to rest in peace. Now, racism was dealt a similar massive blow in 2008 when the United States of America elected a Black president in Barack Obama. Yes, this racism that in my lifetime saw me restricted to even where I could use the bathroom. This racism that would have rendered my first marriage illegal because she was white. Racism was very much alive and thriving during my early life much like Corinne was prior to her illness. But just like in Corinne's case, there were some that just didn't want to let this racism die. And of course, racism was gone. America had elected a Black president. Black people populate every stratum of society. Black people even had white people working for them. So clearly, the era of racism was done. But every now and then, someone would try to resuscitate racism. Even President Obama, on his first opportunity to validate the fact that racism was dead, he tried to resuscitate it. A Cambridge professor was arrested after trying to break into his own house. The police did not know that he lived there and that he was searching for a place where he had stored his key. President Obama said that the police acted stupidly, and the reason he said that is that he thinks the professor was Black. Now, the professor lived in an area where no other Black people lived except him. The police were simply doing their job. And that's not the only instance of attempting to resuscitate racism. Research has shown that Black women, pregnant Black women, those receiving prenatal care, have a worse outcome than any other women. The interpretation of that data by those people wanting to resuscitate racism is that racism is the reason. There are so many moving parts inherent in the event of a pregnancy, it's quite unwise to reduce that outcome down to the race of the pregnant woman. Another instance is the very public and unfortunate negative interactions between Black men and police. Those wanting to resuscitate racism think that the result occurs because the men are Black. Once again, nothing could be further from the truth. There are way too many moving parts and way too many different temperaments in law enforcement and in Black men ourselves to break everything down to a simple concept like our race. But the greatest attempt at resuscitating racism occurred just a few days ago. An insurance company in a small town on a holiday called Juneteenth closed. He put a sign up in the window that says, Juneteenth, we are closed, whatever, enjoy your fried chicken and collard greens. Don't bite on that. It's simply an ignorant comment. Let racism continue on its path to death. It has no effect on anybody's life except the idiot who did it, because now we know there's at least one ignorant person in that town. Now, I tell you these things because I want you to join me in letting racism die. Help racism die. How can you help? When you hear of an unfavorable outcome, don't immediately attribute it to racism. Go down a list of 5 to 10 possibilities that could have caused the outcome that you're talking about. And if none of those apply, which I doubt would be the case, then attribute the outcome to racism. Now, if you will do that, eventually we can pull the plug on racism and racism will finally die. And that's really the only chance that we have. You may be wondering to yourself, now, Victor, why doesn't America just let racism die? And as I said in the beginning of the speech, America loves underdogs. Racism gives America a built-in underdog. And I assure you, if you were the underdog, you wouldn't like the feeling of being so. And as you may have noticed, we are not long about creating other underdogs already. I talked about some in the beginning of the speech just a moment ago. Keeping racism on life support may continue indefinitely, but those in this room can do their part by adopting the suggestion that I have made. And when racism does die, there's not going to be any lamentations about rest in peace. What it will be is the declaration, racism burn in hell. Mr. Toastmaster.